Isaac, last round you played, how many of your 14 clubs did you actually hit? Not could hit, did you actually hit?
I used 10 of my clubs this past Saturday. I'm curious for everybody listening how many clubs they used.
So here's what we found. According to the Arccos database, 1 in 10 golfers is carrying a club they will only use 4 times in 100 rounds. And the reason it's in your bag all traces back to a rule that a man made up in 1936 to stop caddies from throwing their backs out. And later he said that the number was too many.
That's funny. So I guess by the end of this, you'll know which 5 clubs golfers abandon most, who actually decided your bag looks the way that it does, and the one test that tells you whether a club has earned its slot or not. Fair warning, a couple of your clubs are going to fail this.
So go look inside your bag. Let's get into the podcast today.
Oh, interesting. Well, thanks for letting me know. I'll see ya. Just got off FaceTime with YouTube. 83.6% of you are not subscribed to the channel. All that means is that more people like you who would benefit from this information are not finding the channel. So hit the subscribe button if you would, please. Thank you. Yeah, and if your bag is in the back of your car right now while you're driving down the highway, don't do that. Let's just maybe think through it. The reason this topic came up was I was actually cleaning out my office. I got all my clubs over here to the right, and I found a hybrid, a Tour Edge hybrid that I used all the time. I loved it in college. So I took it over to the range, very quickly realized it's not something I need in my bag. Even if I do like the club, I still hit it well. It just doesn't make sense in my bag.
Yeah, Isaac, how should people go about picking which clubs go in their golf bag?
Mhm. Each club is a tool in your toolbox. And that's the thing I want to get after today. Golfers treat the club that they can't hit as like a personal failure, like it's something they have to overcome. So if you just put in the reps, maybe your forehand will be worth having in the bag.
So you're saying it's not a practice problem, right?
I'm saying that if somebody else picked those 14 clubs and it was not you, and it was not a coach or a fitter, and it wasn't data, it was probably just whatever came in the set, right? It wasn't necessarily somebody with experience or you through trial and error picking out the tools that are going to work best for your use cases. So let's start with what's actually in our bags right now or what's in your bag right now because there is real data on this that for whatever reason this article was pre-buried from Lou Stagner running an analysis on the Arccos database in March of 2023. The population does matter here, Hayden, so I wanna talk about
Okay.
that. This is golfers who played 30 or more 18-hole rounds in a calendar year carrying exactly 14 clubs. So we do the same thing in our app where you can change out what clubs are in your bag or whatever. Arccos does that, but I think they allow you to have more than 14 or less than 14.
Yeah, so these
Um,
sound like committed golfers, not the guy who just plays every now and then.
yeah, these are people who play a lot and track everything, which actually makes it worse. 13% of those committed golfers who are tracking everything are carrying a club they use less than once every 10 rounds, and 10% are carrying a club they use less than once every 20 rounds.
Hold on, I'm gonna say that again. You said 10% are carrying a club that they use less than once every 20 rounds.
Yeah. So if they played 100 rounds a year, they would be using this club in like 4 or 5 rounds at best. That's just like kind of wasted weight you're dragging around.
Yeah. Oh man. I mean, so like, is this at an entry level thing? Is this a high handicap thing? Like, where are we going with this?
It is at every single level, not just your 25 handicaps, also your single digit golfers.
Oh, dang. I mean, I
Yeah.
don't know if I've had a lot of stats. Like we throw a lot of stats out, and some of them, they're hard hitting, and we find these statistics, and I think this is the one that's kind of shocked me the most. So, okay, let's talk about it. Which clubs? Because I think everyone listening is probably already going to guess what it already is.
Yeah. So we'll go in order here. And you can probably guess the first one. It's a 4 iron. We already kind of mentioned that.
Yeah.
About 15% of the idle clubs in the database is 4 irons. Then 3 wood at 13%, which we've seen some of that discussion with mini drivers, right? Then a 3 hybrid, which I thought was interesting at 10%, 4 hybrid also at 10%, and a 5 iron at 9%. So it's kind of those tweener clubs where you're having a transition between driver and your mid irons.
Yeah, it really just sounds like it's in that one section of the bag. It's in that higher, we're hitting the ball longer, and if it's like that hybrid or 4 iron, it seems like people are going towards the club that's maybe a little bit easier to hit.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of reasons, obviously. Hayden, what are some that come to mind for you?
So I think the reasons for each one are different, honestly. The 3 wood, people can sometimes call it the security blanket. For me, it's kind of one of those clubs that if I'm on a hole and I know that it's not long, I'll just hit the 3 wood because, sometimes it's tight. I feel a little bit more comfortable with that. Uh, it's the club that you carry for the day that your driver stops working. Some people would say, um, a lot of times people carry it though. You're carrying it because you're scared of a version of you that will sometimes show up. Am I right?
Yeah, what's funny is as we've talked about before, like your 3 wood across all handicap groups is gonna be about 1% more accurate than your driver. So it's
Yeah.
not like it's really
Yeah.
doing you a whole lot more favors.
Yeah. I was caddying the other day and tried to tell that to the person I was
Mhm.
caddying for, and they couldn't accept that stat. No, no, my 3 wood is this and it's this. And, while there are absolutely availability for outliers, I think that's a statistic people have a hard time digesting. And so the long irons we were talking about earlier, they're opposite. Those are the aspirations, the clubs that you bought because of the golfer that you think you are or the golfer you at least want to be, right?
Yeah. What's unfortunate is neither one of those is like a plan. Like if a security blanket isn't a plan, trying to aspire to be something isn't a plan. So I think we need something concrete in place so we can make wise decisions around what's in the bag.
Yeah. So I'm going to say the harder version of this because I think it's true for most people. You're not carrying the club to hit it. You're carrying it so that you're not the guy who doesn't own the club. So
Mm,
you don't
that's
look like the guy that doesn't have the 3 wood or the
that's
4 iron.
that's interesting. Talk to me a little bit more about that. I like that.
So, like, the real thing is where you unzip the bag, you're on the first tee, and most people, they're either meeting you for the first time or you're just coming up and showing. Nobody wants to be that guy that has like the gap in their bag. It's not about the golf shot, it's about the bag looking good. It's about the bag looking right. And we haven't seen, the logo mogging season is upon us. I mean, it really is. We're talking about the bag looking right. I mean,
Yeah.
how long were those lines at the USAM this past week?
Well, and
At
they're
I know
selling stuff
we
online
weren't
too.
there. Yeah,
What are we doing? Yeah, that might be. We might need to do a whole podcast about how you're allowed to use a logo and not. Um, yeah, well, and the unfortunate thing is like nobody cares.
yeah,
Like that's kind of a life lesson too. Like in all honesty, probably nobody cares. We've learned that with this podcast. Like, yeah, nobody. Listen, if you're super into this, we really appreciate it. But ultimately, we're doing this to help a very small percentage of people, right? And
yeah,
it's a blast. We have a ton of fun doing it. But it's the same thing with your bag. Nobody cares. I think it's fun it's a fun conversation starter because I'm an equipment nerd, right? Like, oh, okay, what irons do you have in the bag? Why do you have them? Like, it's more of a fun thing as opposed to, oh, you don't have a 3 wood? What a nerd, dude. That's so lame. Like,
yeah,
nobody's ever done that. If you're a golf stats nerd just like me, then you are going to love the comprehensive stats guide down below. It takes everything from 3 feet to 300 yards for 20 handicaps to tour pros, and it puts it all on one nice pretty sheet so you can see where you're supposed to be at and where you need to be at if you want to get better. Completely free. Just download it below.
yeah. Nobody's ever looked in my bag and thought less of me. And I think it goes back to just humans in general. We're always constantly thinking, worrying about what other people are thinking about you. The truth is, most of the time that you're thinking about yourself 10 times more than people are thinking about you. And so, yeah, if it's really that deep where it's about, oh man, I need to have this club because this club, like everyone has a blank. Everyone
Yeah.
has a pitching wedge. Everyone has a 60 degree.
Yeah.
Everyone has a whatever. You just really need to take a long look in the mirror. Is this a club that I actually use? And is it one of those clubs that's a 1 in every 20 rounds? I just I can't get away from that.
Yeah.
1 in 20, or yeah, it was 1 in 20 rounds. I mean, it's
Yeah.
just unbelievable.
And the thing is, like, if you have a club that you use once every 20 rounds, there's something missing there, and I actually don't think it's the golfers who just have a club in the bag. I think it's we've kind of inherited as we've been digging into this, like, you inherited a slot. We inherited 14 clubs, and we feel like we have to fill up the bag, and then you look at what's maybe in Tour Pros bags, and you put stuff in there, or you just get whatever comes in the stock set, and you build around that. So, that's feeling bad about something that you can't hit isn't necessarily a you problem then, right?
Which brings up the obvious question: why is 14 clubs a thing?
And that's one of the weirder stories in golf. We'll get there. Before we do, every one of you just guess which club you probably never hit and is guessing the actual problem. Nobody knows their own numbers as well as they think, unfortunately, as we've learned through reading our own comments. And we're going to prove that later with the study. We did put together a free stats guide for everybody with real benchmarks from 3 feet to 300 yards, 20 handicaps all the way down to tour pros. So if you want to see where you should be based on your handicap level for each one of these yardages, or what it's gonna take to get to the next level, this free stats guide has been awesome, and I think we've got like 700 people who've downloaded it, so it has been an incredible resource.
All right, Isaac, you're burying the lead. Come on, 14 clubs. I got to hear the story. Let's hear it.
So before 1938, there was no limit at all. You could just carry whatever you wanted, and people did. There was a survey done at the 1935 US Open, and the average player in the field carried 18 clubs. One guy carried 32. I don't even know if I own 32 clubs, let's be real. Like,
I mean,
so
that's just comical. I mean, I I think to some of the best sitcoms or even the best, yeah, comedy TV shows, you got to think of like what wacky people are your favorite. Whether it's like Michael Scott, whether it's maybe Ross from Friends. They show up to the golf course and it's like, hold on, you have how many golf clubs with you? Isaac, 32 is absolutely insane.
correct. And the reason is wild. He carried a full set of right-handed clubs and a full set of left-handed clubs. So if his ball ended up against a tree, he could just play the shot the other way around. By the way, I played with a kid in high school who did this, but it was just with one club, and it actually happened in a match. Like a
Yeah.
9-hole match, he ended up against a tree, and it was like, "Oh, I can use my left-handed club." Like, this is peak Central Illinois golf. It was,
Yeah,
yeah.
it's either the dumbest or the smartest thing I've ever heard. I think at the end of the episode, you could probably ask me, and I'll probably have a decision by then.
Yeah, what's funny is he's not even the reason that this whole 14 club thing went into effect. It was actually Lawson Little, he won the US Am, the British Am twice actually, to
Dang.
back-to-back years, 1934, 1935. He would carry up to as many as 26 clubs, including 7 wedges, which, oh yeah,
Ooh,
lofts have changed over the years, but whatever.
dang, 7 wedges. Oh,
7 wedges, like
it's just like, come on, man, just like pick something. Like,
yeah.
what are we going? 52 degree, 54 degree, 56 degree. Like,
I don't know what we were doing. They were probably named different things though, right? It was probably like the Chauncey and the Niblick and the, all that good stuff. But yeah, 7 wedges. The World Golf Hall of Fame literally credits him with prompting the 14 club rule. Like, he was a big part of that reason.
yeah. So the USGA, they just look at that and they say, all right, enough's enough.
Yeah. So 1 year later, January 1st, 1938, RNA then follows a year after that. And Rand Jarris, who ran the USGA museum, has talked about the 3 concerns behind it. Number 1 was de-skilling the game, which we've heard a lot of recently. Uh, and the idea that if you have a club for every possible shot, you never have to manufacture anything. There's no real skill.
Yeah. So this is the Jimenez argument.
Yeah, don't get ahead of me here. Let's stay on topic. We'll get to him. The second concern was money. So wealthy players could just buy more clubs than everybody else. And then the third one was caddies. Shout out to Hayden here. Bags were up to 35 pounds. 35 pounds.
I mean, I just this is crazy. I mean, I'm telling you, when you look back, golf is such a historic game. When you look back at some of the things that like we did back then, one of my favorites is dropping the golf ball behind. They dropped it because it really just eliminated all. It just made everything up to chance. I mean, I see some of the things, and it's just comical. It just makes me laugh. So yeah, it sounds more like a labor issue, than a golf issue. But yeah, sure, 35 pounds. We got
Yeah.
to look out for the caddies.
I was gonna say that sounds like a nightmare if you're flying like Allegiant. Like goodness gracious,
Yeah.
you're 35 pounds plus you got all the other stuff. Well, here's the part that obviously all that's wild, but the guy who proposed the number 14, Robert Harris, actually I have a friend who's named that, college teammate.
Shout out if he's listening.
Shout out Rob. He was an RNA guy. He wrote a book in 1953 and he talks about how the number got picked. He said the number was reached, quote, without the why and wherefore of only 14 clubs being questioned or debated.
Yeah, let's just go with a number that everyone thinks about, everyone talks about, right? 14, just a number that's always on everyone's head.
What? Yeah, like nobody. Yeah, everybody was thinking about that. Yeah, that's an awesome argument too. Everybody just thought 14 right off the top. Well,
No,
now he talks
it's
about how like 14 is too many. Like he in that book, he also talks about it is now apparent that 14 is too many.
dang. It reminds me of the Nate Bargatze, on SNL where he just starts naming all the crazy and weird things that Americans adhere to. How many feet are in a mile? Oh, just a number that everyone would remember, 5,280. It's just like, oh yeah, 14. Let's
Yeah,
just go with that.
yeah.
Isn't
It's like
isn't
how
that
many
number
dimples are.
like
Yeah.
yeah, isn't that number just around in everyone's lives? All right, so the guy who invented the rule said that let's get back on topic. The guy who invented the rule said that the rule was wrong,
Yes, in print in 1953.
and we're still doing it.
Yeah, still doing it almost 100 years later. That's wild. Not actually
Dang.
100, but close enough.
Okay, so I mean, the thing that gets me is that there's no version where somebody sat down and figured out that like 14 was optimal. There was no study, there was no testing. It's just boom, 14.
I mean, they didn't have Claude Pask, so
Yeah.
there was no like let's offload the mental. It was just a bunch of dudes. And if we know anything about golf culture, they were probably getting messed up on some ale or something like that. Yeah, 14 sounds great. That's probably what it was. Some guy probably had 14 and was like, "That's my favorite number." But
Uh,
yeah, the best guess that anybody has is that 14 was just what a normal set looked like back then. So 4 woods, 9 irons, and a putter,
yeah,
which is
that
similar to what it looks like now for some people, I guess.
yeah.
But it's also because we set the number at 14.
Yeah, and so when we started thinking about this topic, it is worth saying that there were guys back winning majors with way less than that. Francis Ouimet won the 1913 U.S. Open with 7 clubs, and he beat the famed Harry Vardon and Ted Ray, the two best players on the planet, with, you heard it,
7.
folks,
7
7
clubs.
clubs. Okay, so with 7, it's not just like an old timer thing either. What I brought up earlier, Miguel Angel Jimenez, who's still playing, has said publicly that he wants the 10 club limit. And his line was, why don't we think about playing with 10 clubs rather than 14? People have lost the ability to work the golf ball.
Yeah, because the rule just says you can't carry more than 14. It doesn't say you have to carry 14. Actually, my one of the best golfers I ever played with, Caden Scarborough, who was one of my teammates in college, played with 13. I think all 4 years or all 5, however many years he had. Shout out to COVID. So it's a limit, right? It's a
Yeah.
ceiling, and so you don't have to hit the ceiling, although it might feel like you're missing out if you don't. If you've got a busy Google Calendar and you still want to get better at golf, you will get 7 free days of the Clarity Golf app if you just grab it down below. It takes the time, facilities, and skill level that you're at and builds out a plan that gets better as you do. Everyone gets 7 free days. After that, it's $15 a month. Or if you use code PRGPOD and sign up for that annual plan, you'll get it for $20 off every single year for life, which brings that price to $100 a year. So at a bare minimum, go download it, screenshot whatever plan it gives you, and use that. You will get so much better.
So yeah, Isaac, let's just talk about the loft. So a 7 iron in the 1990s was somewhere between 34 to 35 degrees, and today a game improvement 7 iron is around 28 to 30 degrees. The Titleist T400 goes all the way down to 26. It kind of makes me think back to, again, talk about the USAM at Marion. They talked about, was it Hogan or it was Hogan's 1 iron, right? We talk
Mm-hmm.
about that, or is it Bobby Jones?
I think it was Hogan at Marion.
Yeah, so it was one
Yeah.
iron. I saw conflicting reports, but like a 1 iron would be like a 5 to 6 iron today. And
Yeah. Can we get a little
I
nerdy here? Like, I don't talk a ton about my profession on this podcast. But I mean, I've worked around club fitting and golf retail for the past 8 years. This argument is lame, by the way. Like, I just straight up, if you're like, well, the irons get so strong, that's why people hit it far. They're designed to go far and high. They're designed to be easy to hit.
yeah,
That's the point. So they put all this weight at the bottom so it launches really high and still spins enough. Like, they're not trying to get you to hit it flat and forever, that would be stupid because then you would hate your irons and you would never buy from that company again. So that's I threw that in the dock, the loft stuff, because it's an important part of this conversation. But it's also like super lame when people make that argument. It's like also nobody cares if you what club you hit. Back to nobody cares about it. Like so yeah, some people are gonna say their new irons go further, they're less lofted, whatever. It's just a number.
Yeah.
So here, but what people don't really talk about is that when those things that were named got strengthened, so a
Yeah.
pitching wedge, right, gets strengthened. Now we open up a hole at the bottom of the bag. So that's where a gap wedge comes in.
Yeah.
So now we're starting to add some complication. Hayden, I want to jump down a little
Yeah.
bit. Um, so once again, Lou Stagner, we've talked about him. We've talked about how he talks about that like middle zone between, let's say, 7 iron and 3 wood, right? Doesn't get used a ton.
Yeah.
He's a big proponent of owning more than 14 clubs. His whole thing is to own a bunch and swap them based on course conditions, which is
Yeah.
kind of the opposite of what it sounds like we're talking about. I do a similar thing where I own, we were talking about beforehand. I've got a 5 wood that I'll switch out with my 3 wood based on what's going on. Like if I need something off the tee in that slot, I'll use 3 wood because it goes a little further. If I need something in the greens, I'll use 5 wood because it goes a little shorter and goes a little higher. This is not to say that you should go carry 7 clubs to prove a point, right?
Yeah.
This is about carrying things on purpose. So, an illustration I'll use is you walk into a big machinery shop, and a lot of the techs will have their own equipment. They'll have their own, like, they're spending, $10,000, right? But they get to pick what tools they want to use to get the job done well, right? So, when I think about high level golfers, I think about the same thing, right? These pros are switching maybe wedges out or whatever. There's also an amateur version of this that we'll talk about, but I do think we should talk about a little bit of the pro version, right? And you famously are a professional golfer.
Yeah.
So is there any time where you maybe switched some clubs out, played with less than 14? Walk me anything in that realm?
Yeah, I never 14 out of the bag, but we talked about this before, but I think it's worth kind of retelling the story, especially if we have new listeners. I played a state qualifier, so it was a state open qualifier, and it was like 60 guys for 12, 10 spots. I mean, it was definitely like, okay, I know I got to play well, but I don't have to win. I don't need to go and shoot 15, 10 under, 12 under. I don't have to go and do the craziest thing. And yeah, I knew what was going on. I knew the golf course very well because where we played our state high school state tournament every single year. So I played the course many times. And yeah, I knew what I was, and maybe more importantly, I knew what I wasn't capable of in terms of
Mm,
I'd played lots of tournaments, and I knew that my driver was absolutely a weakness. And for some reason, and this absolutely goes back to like a mental block. Nothing really changes with a swing, especially when it comes to driver and 3 wood. But I knew that like I feel so much more confident with a 3 wood. I feel like I can see my target. I can hit the shots. I can do all the things that I want to do with a 3 wood more. And so I had the driver in the bag, but 18-hole golf course, 4 par 3. So on 14 holes, I hit 3 wood every single one of those holes. And I even came up to the last hole, which was a par 5, 3 under. I was one of the last groups, and I knew that I was, I think, two clear of the number. And I think I knew that 5 under won, like
mm.
had won. And there wasn't shop credit on the line or anything. There was just pride. And I was like, oh, I could par 5, I can get an eagle here. And I definitely thought, like the thought crossed in my mind, let's grab a driver. Let's make an eagle. Like I'm not gonna make a triple. And it really wasn't a hole you make a triple, but it was probably one of the most disciplined rounds that I've ever had. And not disciplined honestly, like holes 1 through 18, but disciplined in how I thought about the golf course like the day before. I didn't play a practice run because I'd played it so many times, but just how I made the decision to do it. And then I stuck with that decision the entire day and never wavered from it. So the whole reason we tell the story is that when we talk about our golf bags and we talk about how we've built our golf bags and what clubs that we have, and what clubs, more importantly, we have that we shouldn't be using, or at least the clubs that don't ever get used. I think it's really, really important to break down that if you take a long look in the mirror and you kind of figure out, okay, this is what is going on with my game today, not who I want to be, not who I've been, but today. Can I have the discipline to make the decision that's going to make me a better golfer for that day?
Yeah, that's a great point. We've got a little test to kind of understand that a little bit better. I do want to point out, like, having less than 10 or having less than 14 clubs can also, not only is it going to save some cash as well, but
Yeah.
it'll force you to understand where you're missing clubs. So yeah, you might be missing out on something for a couple months or whatever, but you're gonna once you get that slot filled, you're gonna really understand why it's important. So I mean, the amount of times that I've set beginners up with clubs, 10 clubs in the bag, right? And we're
Yeah.
leaving a gap on purpose because I want to know if that gap's gonna make a difference or not. Because if it's not, then we can fill that. We can do something else with that slot, or we might not even need it, right? Like we talked about with Caden, or like with you. Like I mean, Caden was playing college golf with 13 clubs,
High level.
like a very high level. Just also got snubbed from a regional, by the way. Absolute loser stuff, NCAA. I'm sure they're listening. Okay. So for those of us who don't maybe play enough golf to make it make sense to have a gajillion different clubs that we swap out based on course conditions, what do you do with all this? And I want to say up front, none of this costs money. None of it costs more practice time. It is a 10-minute thing that you can do tonight, and then one round where you pay attention. If you have more rounds where you can do that, great, but really just one round. And there are 4 rules. Rule number 1, every club in your bag needs a job that you can say out loud. And I don't mean a yardage, because every single club has a yardage. That's like just how it works. I mean a job. What situation does this club exist for? And if you say the situation where I have 220, that's a yardage. Like that's not
Yeah.
um now, yes, you do need to have a lot of yardages covered, right? Like that's kind of the point of wedges. But the reason that those clubs are in the bat, or like, okay, I have an 8 iron because it goes between my 9 and my 7, right? But the goal with these clubs should be to have a stated job, right?
Yeah.
So if it's in the weird, especially if it's in the weird slots, like a 3 hybrid or a 3 wood or whatever, if it is not the highest performer for that job, it's probably not worth it. Like I was just talking about between 3 wood and 5 wood. I know 3 wood is going to be a better club off the tee, not as good into greens. I know the 5 wood's going to be better into greens, not as far off the tee, but still fine, right? Um, so
Yeah,
that's
let me give you 2 titles. Okay, so the first one, and I've heard this many times. I've caddied for people. Hey, I have this club, and we walk up to the one hole. This is the only club that I use on this hole, and it's my home course, and I use this club on this hole specifically. Is that a good answer?
that's great. Sounds like a nice specific. And if you're playing there all the time, that's a specific job. Very nice.
Well, what if a what if a person says, "Well, I carry this club because it came with the set."
Yeah, that's not a job. That's just like kind of a prescription that you don't really understand why you have it. And that doesn't mean that you don't have to keep it in the bag, right? Like if it came with the
Yeah,
set, that's fine. But either learn its job, right? Or find something that can replace it that has a distinct job. That is rule
yeah.
number 1.
All right. So rule number 2: 2 clubs cannot share the same job.
Mhm.
So if you're 4 iron and your 3 hybrid both cover the same 15-yard window, one of them is just a bag decoration. And it's probably
Mhm.
the hybrid just because it probably comes with a sick logo, you know? It's
Yeah.
probably got an Oakmont logo. It's probably got
Yeah.
a tree farm logo, something
You want
like
the
that.
other you want the other head cover on there. Well, and it's this is why it's worse than it sounds. Your dispersion at most distances is wider than the gap between those 2 tightly mown clubs, if you will.
Yeah.
So, y you think you might be able to be more precise. "Oh, did I carry this one 200 and I carry this one 210?" Like, well, if you hit the 210 one, like, kinda, it's gonna go 200. And for the most part, as we've talked about in previous episodes, people leave like the overwhelming majority of their missed greens are short, and the overwhelming majority of trouble is short. That's I'm tired of arguing about with that one in the comments.
So
It's
you're
just
not
numbers.
buying precision, you're buying a decision. That's
Mm,
like my Eminem hat, Drake's
gosh,
back, maybe that's a little bit of it.
yeah, we're gonna put that on a throw pillow. Yeah, you're buying a decision that you have to stand by, right? So you want to be able to stand by it under pressure. That's what you want that club to be able to do. So that's rule number 2. We can't have 2 clubs that do the same job. Rule number 3. This is kind of the actual test. We got to name stuff. So this is the receipt rule, if you will.
Yeah.
You're allowed to keep a club that the data says most golfers should not carry on exactly one condition. You have 20 tracked shots proving it, not 20 remembered shots, not this fantasy of, well, if I hit 4 iron perfect, it goes 230 and lands soft. Like, okay, well, if my grandma had wheels, she'd be a bicycle. So I don't really know what we're doing here. 20 track shots. So this is where tracking things is important. This is why we do it for free for 7 days with the app. Like, you should know what's going on in your game. That should not be something that's like always hidden. And it's also really important in order for you to get better. If you don't know how strong you are on bench press, you're never going to know how to push yourself. If you don't know how good your game is right now or bad, or in what areas, you're never going to be able to get better in those areas. Not never, but it makes it way harder.
What's the benchmark we're testing against?
So we're going to test against ShotScope's published data, most recent published data. So from 175 yards, a 25 handicap holds the green 8% of the time with a hybrid and 2% of the time with a long iron.
Oh, 2%.
And that sounds worse than it actually is. Like, because we're talking about a 25 handicap, right? Like, they're going to hit
Yeah.
whatever it is, half their greens from 50 yards. Um, so from 175 yards, a 20 handicap is 14% with the hybrid and 8% with the iron. 15 handicap, 18% with the hybrid, 14% with the iron. So this only flips at scratch, which I thought was interesting. I think it's probably just because there's more speed, right? They're not using a hybrid anymore. They're probably using an iron.
Yeah.
Um, but from 200 yards, this is interesting. A 15 handicap misses short of the green 73% of the time, to reference what we talked about earlier.
Yeah. 3 out of 4 times.
So, ShotScope's own conclusion based on this data was that golfers of almost every ability level would benefit from hitting a hybrid instead of a long iron from anything over 175.
Yeah, I want to explain why that happens because it's not a swing quality thing. It's launch and descent. So the long
Mhm.
iron does not fail because you swung it badly. So that's not the case. It's not the bad swing. It's not your mechanics. It fails because you can't get it high enough to stop it. The ball comes in flat, either runs up or runs through the green and never gets there in the first place. So don't think of it as a talent issue. It's actually a physics issue. You can ask, you're basically asking your club to do something that it just needs more speed to do. And that can't
Yes.
be developed like during the day. I mean, that's a during the winter or just a kind of philosophical change in terms of creating more of that speed.
And that's why it's so important to go get fit too. Like,
Yeah.
could not be more of a proponent of going and getting fit because you'll know how high it's coming in or not. So the test is not, do you like your 4 or 5 or 6 iron? The test is across 20 tracked shots, does your green and regulation rate beat the green regulation rate of this other club, right? Like,
Yeah.
we can't, if it does beat it, just keep it. Like,
Yeah.
that's fine. Like, we're just trying to figure out what works best for our game. Like, if you are the outlier, that's great. We actually just published today a YouTube video. I got to work on retitling it, but basically a whole video on, like, you're not the outlier. Like, there's a reason they're called outliers. It's because they're rare. And
Yeah.
not everybody can be the outlier, but it seems like everybody thinks that they are. And the data exists not to call you out or not to say that you are like not unique. It exists so that you can benefit from it, right? Like, the
Yeah.
fact that people can benefit from us putting out just this general statistics on 20 handicaps to tour pros from 3 feet to 300 yards, that's a good thing. It's not something
Mhm.
to look at and you go, well, I'm actually like, no, stop it. That's lame.
Yeah,
And
no, last week you talked about how being an outlier was actually or not being an outlier was a really, really positive thing. Like, speak on that again.
if you aren't the outlier, you can learn so much more from these big data sets. And it actually requires less work from you in order for you to understand your game better. So if I am the outlier, which I'll point at, I'll use an example. When I started keeping my stats in college, I found I was statistically better over the course of a season from 125 to 150 than I was from 100 to 125. Does that mean that I started laying back to 125 to 150 because I was the outlier? No, I just sucked from 100 to 125. Like, let's figure it out. Like, and being the outlier there did not work in my favor because I was pushing the ball up to that number, and now I'm actually in a worse spot. So then I just had to get better from there, right?
Yeah.
So that's rule number 3, and I think that's a really important one. Like, keep receipts, keep your stats. If you're keeping an Arccos, if you're not, whatever, like, use our app, use somebody else's app, just use something, please. Use
Yep.
our app for 7 days and cancel. What, like, just get some data because
Yeah.
m even if you're like, "Well, I'm not really I don't like keeping my stats during my round." Okay, do you like looking at your speedometer when you're on the highway? Like, you have to have some kind of gauge of what's going on. And honestly, if your goal with golf isn't to get better, that's fine. Like, probably stop listening to this podcast and go watch Bob Does Sports. And that's also fine. Like, it's a game.
Yeah.
It's cool. But if you want to get better, like, that's you have to track stuff. If you want to get better and you're not tracking stuff, like, you're lying to yourself on one or two fronts. You either don't want to get better or you're just too lazy to actually want to get better. Like, there's not you can't you can't do both. That's they don't go together, unfortunately. Okay, that's my spiel on rule number 3.
I gotta fan you off, man. You're just looking it's looking hot where you are.
We're 38 minutes into this. Let's.
So if you figure out that you are not the outlier and you find a club that says, "Hey, it's time to take it out," rule number 4 says replace it. Do not just remove it, replace it. An empty
Mhm.
slot in your bag is not the goal. High launch fairway woods beat long irons for basically everyone who isn't a scratch golfer. So a 5 wood or a 7 wood is most likely going to be the better buy than a 3 wood or a 4 iron.
Yeah, and we've talked a little bit about the height thing too. But a lot of people don't have the speed to get a 3 wood up, and so a 5 wood actually ends up going the same distance. You just get that's once again why fitting is so important. Or like for me, I carried a 2 iron for years. Now I've got a 7 wood in that slot that I use all the time, no matter what the course conditions are, because I hit it so much straighter. And am I missing out on maybe some run out on firm days? Sure, but don't going back to that 3 wood specifically, since it's number 2 on the abandoned list. Arccos data across all skill levels. Once again, driver hits 45.5% of fairways, 3 wood hits 46.4.
Basically identical.
Basically, I 0.9% difference. And driver
Yeah.
goes 12 yards further than 3 woods at the median. So you're not, if your goal of grabbing 3 wood, once again, I promise you, Hayden, somebody's commenting right now that they are the outlier in this one. I hit my 3 wood so much straighter. I don't know what to tell you, man. Track it. Like, if you are that much straighter, great, cool, but track
Yeah.
it, please,
It's like
because
I dare you to download the app and track it in our app.
I dare you to give me money. No, not there's like 350 million shots.
Yeah.
That you know how many shots 350 million is? That is so many golf shots. Oh, sorry. Oh, and then shot scope 80 million, same deal.
Yeah.
5% penalty rate for 3 wood, 2% for driver. So actually
Yeah.
more people hit it out with 3 wood.
Yeah, you're taking
That's crazy.
a higher penalty rate, and you're
Just
giving up, what's what, 12 yards? You're giving up distance, and it's a higher penalty rate.
high risk, low reward.
Yeah.
That's so like so don't stop making decisions based on what you think that should you think. Start making decisions based on data. Once again, there's also a financial part of this, so I get that. Like be smart about what you're swapping out to. If you're using 3 wood once every 100 rounds, don't go swap it out for something else because you're probably going to use that same number once out of 100. You don't need to go buy a mini driver because you use 3 wood 4 times every 100 rounds,
Yeah.
right? Like, let's make some wise decisions here. So that's the test. Every club has a job that you can say aloud. No two clubs share a job. Anything the data says you should not carry needs 20 tracked shots to stay. And when something comes out, something better should go in.
Yeah, it's humility with a receipt. You can
Mm,
absolutely be the guy who should carry a 4 iron. You just can't be like the guy that's just the vibes guy. Like,
yeah.
"Oh yeah, like this is what it feels like. This is what I should do." Just
Mm,
don't be that guy. Just have some receipts, have
Mm,
something that you can back all your stuff up on.
mm. Okay, so let's play devil's advocate here for a second. I'm gonna
Yep.
argue against the whole episode just for the next minute. All right.
I'd do it.
The honest problem with everything that we just talked about is that taking a club out of your bag probably will not lower your score.
And say the rest of it.
So if your dispersion is, let's say, at 180 yards, 20 yards wide, let's say, right, making up a number, then the 12-yard gap between your 4 iron and your 5 iron is inside the noise, and that cuts both ways. So yes, the extra club is not helping you, but it's not really hurting you either. Maybe it costs you a slot, but it's not necessarily costing you shots.
No, I mean, Isaac, that's fair.
And here's the other one: a club that you use twice a year might be exactly the right club on those two holes. And if you take it out, those two holes get worse.
So both of those are true, and we're not going to pretend otherwise. But it's not worth 3 shots around. I don't want anybody hearing that and thinking that 3 shots around is what that's going to equate to. So I'll tell you exactly what's actually worth. The USGA ran a TrackMan study. They published it in December of 2023 with 630 recreational golfers. Average handicap of them was 13. So for the first one, a 7 iron distance had essentially no relationship with greens and regulation. A golfer with a 7 iron in his hands is just as likely to hit the green regardless of how far he hits it. So it's just
Mm.
7 iron. We're not even talking about distance, just having the 7 iron in their hand.
Okay,
So
so distance. Okay.
yeah, distance isn't a thing. So distance isn't the thing but standing between you and getting a green in regulation. And second, those same golfers overestimated their typical driver distance by about 7%.
So they don't know their own numbers. We actually looked
Mm.
at Arccos data in a recent YouTube video where golfers who logged 10 rounds a year overestimated by 24 yards how far they hit their driver.
Yeah, no, they don't know their own numbers, and they're not being helped by the numbers that they do have. So what you're actually buying when you clear a slot, you're not buying strokes. You're buying a shorter list of things to be wrong about. Fewer
Mm.
clubs you hope on, more clubs you know with.
That's a bit smaller than probably whatever I ended up titling this episode promises,
Yeah.
but that's interesting.
Yeah, no, it's smaller and it's true. I'd rather give you the true version. One caveat, and then we'll move on, is ShotScope and Arccos are both member data. So committed golfers who track everything, and they're not the whole golf population, unfortunately. The direction of all that is really solid. So the decimals move around depending on whose database you're in, which is why we name source every single number that we ever speak on.
Mm. Yeah. All right. Well, let's jump to the here's what we want to take with you section of the episode. In 1936, Rob Harris, once again, shout out Rob, one of my groomsmen, admitted later that nobody debated why. He just said that 14 was too many, and we're still building our entire game around these 14 clubs. That was a rule that was, I guess, kind of just made up, right? Based on
Yeah.
people thinking that there wasn't enough skill in the game. This, I'm going to be honest, this kind of sounds like how the USGA still operates. Well, we think the ball goes too far. We think it's the ball, actually.
Isaac, we're 46 minutes in. We can't.
Gosh dang it. I really want to. I still got a little caffeine in me and it's evening, so we're still a
But
little fired
honestly,
up.
if we're gonna, we're gonna flame people, just let's do it now when we're a small shop.
True. And late in an episode when like 12% of people are listening. If you're still listening, code PRG Pod, download the app. You'll get
Come
$20
on.
off every year for life. So okay, go through the bag tonight or tomorrow morning or whatever. Just go through every single club out loud. Finish this sentence. I carry this club 4. I carry this club
I
4.
carry this club to hit bombs.
Yeah, and if that's the excuse, shout out to Phil. I guess that's what you're doing right now. Um, or if you don't have a reason for that club being in the bag, track it. Track it for enough rounds to where you have 20 shots, and you might end up putting all 14 back in. That's great. You just need to know why you're picking them. So if all the clubs in your bag are wrong, wait. until you hear what the range is doing to the ones that you can actually hit. That's gonna be the next episode that's gonna be sitting between Hayden and I. Hayden, anything that we wanna add? I know I kind of jumped down in the dock here a little bit, but
No, I mean, my biggest takeaway is just to like when I told the story, it's honestly it's just the discipline. Just have some sort of discipline, have something that can tie you back. And I always feel like when I make decisions that are disciplined, even if it goes wrong, I feel okay about it. And then if I make the decision that's a disciplined decision and it goes right, I mean, my cortisol and I mean, everything is through the roof. I mean, I just get so excited, so pumped. In the Ohio Open this year, I had a par five that I hit in the trees. I had a window that I could have punched it to like 100, maybe a little under 100 yards. And I said, you know what? Like, it's a par five. We're just going to take our medicine. I punched out borderline backwards to like 195, 190 yards. Isaac, I hit the shot to like 10 feet and made the putt. And I tell you what, like that shot is going to stick in my brain for the longest time because it was a disciplined decision. So when we're thinking about building our bags and we're thinking about whether to keep the clubs or swap out or do something, make that disciplined decision. And I guarantee you that even if it goes wrong for a little bit, you're going to feel a little bit better because if you're tracking your stuff, if you really are, if you're going in there and you have the receipts for it, you're going to find out that there's a club in there, or you're going to find out there's a club that you want to be using more. Go practice it, go figure out a spot that you can use it and make it a go to club for your bag.
yeah. Yeah, it's club selection is so tough too because as we've talked about, the overwhelming majority of your scoring comes from those mid irons and wedges. And so what we're talking about right now is like the outlier clubs that you're using every once in a while. So making sure that those are right, you're also buying some confidence in the weird situations. If you're not
Mhm.
using them that much, that means you need to be even more confident because you're getting less reps with them. I think
Yeah.
that's kind of a little side tangent there. Well, once again, we got a great episode on why the range is rigged. That's going to be sitting between Hayden and I here. If you got any thoughts on what you want to hear about in the future, let us know. Because if you're listening at this point, we really appreciate you. We got some cool
Yeah.
swag coming, hopefully soon. That will have some limited edition stuff. I don't know any other fun updates on what's going on. Luke and I are
No,
rocking
Isaac and
with
I,
the app. We got
yeah,
some team stuff too. If you're a coach or you know a high school or college coach, get them in touch with us. We're we run about half the price as our competitors, and we do pretty much everything. And we're going to continue getting better because we're not financially dependent on it. So let's just
yeah.
get into honesty hour here. This is like a therapy session.
No, Isaac, yeah, personally, for both of us, we got big tournaments coming up.
Hmm.
So anytime that kind of stuff goes on, we'll share it on the socials. And yeah, be on the lookout for Hayden Zimmer Golf coming to
Oh
and
yeah, yeah.
coming
Let's
to a
just get it
social
rolling,
media
dude. Come on.
coming to a social media page near you.
By the time this episode comes out, it needs to be public. At least it
Yeah.
needs to be up there with one reel.
Yeah, we can do that. I
I
can make
love
that
that.
happen.
That's great. Yeah, because I've got what Ohio Mid Am and Miami Valley Mid Am between now and our next pod.
Yeah.
You and I's next pod.
And on that
So,
next pod, we're definitely breaking down your two subpar rounds for today. But it didn't
mhm.
relate to the topic very much, but we're gonna break them down.
And next week we've got a USAM competitor coming on, so that'll be a fun conversation. So, thanks again, guys, for listening. I know we dragged out that I just can't end an episode that well.